Hey, hey, Tim.
Hey,
Wake the heck up, man.
I'm up.
Oh my gosh, it's Friday,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I slept all the way till now.
Did you really? You mean
No.
just sitting in front of your computer like that?
Yeah, that's all I was doing, man. That's all
Wow.
I was.
I think in chat they were making fun of you
Nuh-uh.
all this time.
They better not. These people are too nice to do that. They're way too nice to be doing that.
You know what you need to do is just like put some eyes and a nose and a mouth like on the top of your head and just
Uh-huh.
just lay there like this and
Mhm.
and just pretend you're awake.
Exactly. Oh, here we go. That's great.
All right. Well, so we're going to go ahead and roll our intro, and we have Danielle Steadman here, host of Project Dark Timber and the Cryptid Encounters with Eli and Dogman Diaries. And we're going to get into some Dogman tonight. And we are, at least I am so excited because this will be the first time that we've talked about Dogman on Element 115. And I know Mr. Tim here is excited about it too.
Yeah,
So,
I'm totally jacked on this. This is going to be great.
yeah. And we had a couple people earlier mention, why don't we ever talk about Dogman? And I'm like,
Okay.
you know what? We need to talk about Dogman. So we're going to
Yep.
get that going. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and roll the intro and we'll see you back in a moment.
Oh dear Lord, it's these two ass clowns again. Well, now that you're here, you might as well sit down and get comfortable.
Welcome to the dimension of the unknown, where the imagination reigns supreme, crafting worlds and realities that defy the limitations of our mortal coil. Beyond the veil of reality, there exists a realm that defies the boundaries of human perception. Certain places beckon with an otherworldly allure, stirring the senses and whispering secrets of a dimension that lies just beyond the threshold of our mundane existence. The air is alive with an electric anticipation, as if the next step might unravel the very fabric of reality, plunging us into an abyss from which there is no return. This realm is a boundless expanse, as infinite as the cosmos and as timeless as the ages. It inhabits the twilight zones of existence, where the glow of knowledge and the shadows of ignorance entwine like lovers in a cosmic dance. Here, the rational and the mystical converge, suspended between the depths of human terror and the pinnacle of our understanding. Welcome to Element 115.
All right, Tim, why don't you start saying hello to everybody tonight?
Okay, if I have to, I can do that.
You know, I'm not going to thank you here in front of everybody, but just so you know.
Okay, good. Okay, thanks, man. All right, let's see who we got in the house tonight. It looks like we're starting off with Race Fan, and he was the first one in yesterday, so he's been waiting 24 hours by the looks of it. Welcome to the show, Race Fan. We also have T-Bone. Yes, T-Bone, my man. Road Flare, how you doing? Thanks for coming on in. Who else have we got down here? We got Mel WD40. He's lubing us up for the show because, as we all know, you need the lube to get into the woo. So we're going to depend on you tonight, Mel. Make sure you're ready to rock because it's Dogman, which is so awesome. Cosmic Joe Chronicles, how you doing, man? Good to see you. And who else we got going on here? Amanda's Crazy Life channel. Welcome to the Element 115. And I think she's new here on this show. I've seen her on the other show. Let's see who else we got. Wise Ass McCoy, how's it going, man? And we're rolling through J Truth Seeker. There you are. How you doing, buddy? Thank you for coming in. Frankie B, it's good to see you too. And scrolling on along. Be done with it. Be done with it. How you doing tonight? I like
Done with it.
That's a pretty cool one. I got one too, but I like be done with it. How you
All
doing?
right.
Thanks for coming in. And I think that's where we're at right now. So we'll keep updating and saying hello to everybody as we move along during the show.
All right, let's bring Danielle in. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hello.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. I was kind of worried, I have to say.
Hey, I'm a woman. I can't help it. I'm always running behind.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. It's no big deal. No big deal. That's just be me. That's me just being me.
That's just Lee.
Always worried. Yeah. So it sounds like that you might be doing your own podcast as well. Is that correct?
Well, I'm trying to put it back together. I'm going to do a few interviews, but this time it's more boots on the ground. I have an area that's pretty active, and I know there's several active areas here in North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina. Somebody just wrote me and told me there's some in Georgia. So for now, I'm going to stick like close to home to like Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Kentucky, Virginia, West Virginia. But hopefully, as I pick up subscribers, then like I have people want me to come to Texas and come to the triangle out there, the Dogman Triangle. And I do want to, but as you know, you got to grow your audience, and it just takes time to do these things. So I hate that I gave up years ago, but I don't know. I'm somebody that I get, I don't know, a little bit too involved sometimes with some of the people that come forward. And I think I've learned my lesson there. So
yeah. Well, you're on the East Coast, and it's late for you. So I really do appreciate you doing the show. When I told Tim that you were coming on and what you were going to be talking about, he was elated. Absolutely elated.
100.
He's like, great.
100%. It is so this is a topic that I don't know a lot about, but super interested in. And there's I shouldn't say, it seems that there's so few guests and people out there that actually investigate and talk about Dogman. So I'm all over this, like a dog on a bone. I'm really excited about this show tonight.
Yeah.
Well, I actually, years ago I said I never wanted to see another one, but I think like, and it's not, what you saw. Like for me, I know what I saw. You would never convince me that wasn't what it was. I had witnesses with me. My God, it did damage to my ex's vehicle, and I mean bad damage to where his dad thought he had wrecked. So I think it's in your head that like, especially when you have people questioning, you know what I mean? If you really did see it, because once you come forward, you don't mean to become like a public figure for this, but you do. And it's crazy how many emails and messages I get from people who say, hey, I've seen one, and a lot of people are afraid to come forward because, you're basically saying you saw a giant werewolf. That's what it equals. You're saying, I saw something that is from movies or, something we all we grow up being told this doesn't exist.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you see something. And what really killed me is like, I never told my dad, and I'm very close to my dad. But when I did These Woods Are Haunted, I had to tell him because I knew family would see, people would find out.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe what he told me. He said that there were lots of stories when he was growing up in Virginia about people being followed by these things. And we talked about it. They called them up there all the time, hide behinds. But he said the difference was a lot of people was referring to Sasquatch until they would say a hide behind with ears and a wolf head.
Oh.
Now that is not a Sasquatch.
No.
Right.
So I almost fell over. Then he started telling me like all these stories, and I was like really freaked out, and I was like, I could have told him this years ago. And he even told me, he was like, I would have believed you. He was like, I took you out in the woods all the time. You hunted with me all the time. You know what we have around here. You know what we don't have around here. And I'm always been very good at identifying, which animals, even down to snakes and things. So I know what I saw. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't a dog. It shouldn't have been there. And I mean,
Yeah.
I got pretty up close and personal with that thing. Didn't mean to, but I
Wow.
mean, I was trapped. I mean, I couldn't go anywhere, and I sure wasn't going outside with it. So, I mean,
Wow.
we literally were nose to nose, quite literal. I mean, thank God we had a glass, but we were nose to nose. So,
Goodness.
yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to just jump in here because I'm totally stoked about all of this and I'm just trying to breathe and not get too excited about it. So, let's just go back a bit here, if you don't mind. And
Mhm.
so, how did this start? Like, this was your first experience. I'm gathering that you're talking about when nose to nose between the glass. So, how
Yeah.
did this all play out? Like, just yeah,
Well,
go for it.
it happened back in 19 it was a long time ago. It's back in 1987. At the
Mhm.
time I was 14 and I had snuck out of the house. Now you have to remember when I was 14, I looked like I was 18 or 19. And my mom, bless her heart, she tried her best to, I guess, control me, but the more you would control me, the worse I was. So I had snuck out and met my boyfriend. We went and we picked up one of my good friends, and she hasn't come forward, and I just call her Jill in all the stories.
Mm,
But we picked her up, and then we were going to go pick up her boyfriend because we were all going to go, like, ride around and just be teenagers,
absolutely.
So his road though was like this very long dirt road. And at the time the guy was dating, his car was a 68 or 69 Camaro, real super loud, it had the glass packs on it, very loud vehicle. He had put a lot of money into it and he was very proud of it. So he said, well, there was like this little pull off, when we turned onto that dirt road. And he said, well, I'll just pull up here and then I'll run down and I'll get him because that car would have woke his parents up for sure. So he parked the car and he left the keys in it because people have said, well, why didn't you blow the horn? But like I said, this thing, it was kind of like because my friends started crying when all this was going on. And the more upset, the more annoyed, the more aggressive it acted.
Mhm.
So I don't know. To me, blowing the horn, which I don't think I actually thought of that at the time, but I think it would have made it worse. But he took off. He had a flashlight, and people used to say, "Was it a full moon?" I don't remember it being, excuse me, like a full moon or anything. But he took off, and it was super dark that night. I do remember that. There was a little bit of moonlight, but I don't remember it being a full moon. But it was kind of like foggy because this was in like late. I can't quite remember, but I know it was after Halloween. So I'm thinking it was early November. And
Mhm.
he took off going down the road. So, me and Jill, we were just sitting there listening to the radio and talking about school, basically, girl stuff, gossiping, basically. And the first thing I remember, like, he hadn't been gone, but maybe 2 or 3, maybe 5 minutes. The first thing I remember was a smell. It was this terrible, terrible smell. It smelled like when something's decaying and it's got, maggots and stuff in it.
Mhm.
And it had like an iron. If you've ever been hunting or been, you can
Yep.
smell when something gets killed. You can smell that blood
Blood.
smell in the air.
Mhm.
It had that. It smelled like a dog. Like some people say a wet dog, but I would just say like a dirty, dirty dog or maybe
Mm.
a wet dog. And a urine smell. And
Mm.
the urine smell to me smelled like there's a certain odor a boar hog will put off when he wants to mate. And to
Oh.
me, I swear it smelled like that because at first I actually thought, because we have boars here, I
Mhm.
thought, golly, did a boar come down? Because they're up in the mountains. So I was like, did a boar come out of the mountains? Because, my family's from the mountains and my dad was a huge hog hunter. So I grew up with hogs and cattle and horses and all kinds of stuff. Well, first we smelled that. And I remember my friend was talking and I kind of looked at her and I was like, do you smell that? And she was like, smell what? And I was like, you don't smell that? And she inhaled real deeply and she was like, oh my God, what is that? Because it smells like it's dead. Like it's just a very odd smell. And at the time we had these shirt, we had sweaters on because it was cool. We kind of pulled them up like this over our nose so we could smell our perfume. And I was like, man, I don't remember that. And she was like, well, it must have been here. Maybe, the the wind or air switched and that's why we were now smelling it. And I was like, yeah, I guess. But I just thought it was really weird. And we went back to talking, and then we heard we didn't hear, we felt it was like a very subtle rock of the vehicle. Um, and by now the guys had been gone long enough that if they were both running, they could be back. So initially we thought, well, they're trying to scare us, especially with it just, being Halloween very recently. And, they were guys anyway, and they were always trying to do something to spook us or something. But that's what we thought at first, that they were messing with us.
Sure.
And the first 2 times it rocked the vehicle, it was like just very subtle, kind of like somebody leaned up against the vehicle too hard or something, and I look back and I think, golly, I wonder if that thing was, I don't know, maybe it was trying to figure out what it was. I mean, that sounds stupid. I'm sure. I don't know. I don't know what it was doing. I don't know why it did what it did, but it rocked the vehicle. And then by the second rock, we were like, I leaned back and I was like, I think it's the guys are trying to scare us. So we literally yelled out to them to cut it out and come on, that we weren't scared, but no one answered. And that worried us a little bit, but then we were like, we'll just ignore it and act like, if they are trying to scare us, we already know, and we're not going to acknowledge it. Well, a few minutes later, it rocked again, but this time it came from the front, and this time it was a very like violent shake. And now I'm thinking, I don't enough to where you can hear the suspension. And now I'm thinking, I don't think my boyfriend would do this to this car,
Right.
And I'm like, what in the world could this be? And then it did it again. And now we had called out again to the guys, no reply, no answer. And that was pretty scary for both of us, because we were like, why, if it's them, why aren't they saying something to us? So after the second shake, it wasn't Creed. I'm so sorry. My dog, I had to put him in his crate.
All good.
But hopefully he'll hush. Usually he hushes. But after that one, the next thing we heard was like a growl. And it wasn't a normal growl. You could tell that whatever it was really big. And your mind kind of starts going through, like, what could this be? Could it just be a really big dog? Could it be we have black bears here, but we do get them in this area, but it's very rare that they'll come out of the mountains. So you just kind of start going through, well, what could this be? And it really scared both of us, because we didn't understand what kind of animal would be out there that would be growling like that. And by now the car is like really fogged up from us talking and it being cool outside. And we could hear this thing like at the front quarter panel. And when it growled, it was just a minute later, you could hear, it sounded like metal twisting and tearing.
Oh, geez.
And I was following it with my eyes as it was coming down that quarter panel. And I remember, you're just kind of locked onto it, because your mind's like, I can't believe this is happening. And now I'm thinking, this is definitely not my boyfriend. He would never do this to his vehicle. So I don't know what this is. But as it come down the thing and I was watching it, I kind of looked over and I realized that door was not locked.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I had to make the decision to either sit there and hope that it just went away, or reach over and lock the door, because you don't know. It sounds like an animal, but you don't know. It could be a person. Acting that way, you just never know.
Sure.
So I jumped across the console and I locked the door. And when I did that, it kind of put me nose to nose in the glass. And we kind of heard it kind of rise up, and it was weird because I had taken my hand and just wiped a glass a little bit, because I thought, man, what is that out there? Because you could see kind of like a shadow, and when I wiped it, I swear there was a nose, and it kind of huffed at me, and like the other side of the glass fogged up, and then it rose up. And when it rose up, I was thinking, okay, wait a minute, because I knew the difference between a bear and a dog. And I thought that looked like a daggum wolf, but wolves don't stand up like we do. Now that could be
Right.
something a bear would do, but not a wolf. Because I once had someone ask me, they were like, "Are you sure it wasn't a bear?" And I was like, "I know the difference between a bear muzzle and a wolf muzzle." That was a wolf, and it had very pointed ears, which I saw later on. But at the time, I knew that wasn't. It was too narrow for it to be a bear. And when it rose up, well, it was male. Let's just say that I got a good look at it. And what was weird is, the first interview I did was on VIX, and I thought, now you got to remember, I was 14
Hmm.
when it rose up, and we heard it step back because it kind of rose up, it stepped back, it grabbed the car, and it started shaking it. And I was just like, what is going on? Because then when I saw it, I like jumped back in my, on the other side to be as far away from it as I could. And this thing is growling and acting horrible the whole time. And I'm thinking, dogs don't stand. So it wasn't making, your mind is trying to normalize it. I guess
Sure.
that's the best thing, because anything outside of that is so far outside of what your mind's capable of handling, that your mind's just trying to normalize whatever that is on the other side, but you're not coming up with a very good idea of what that could be.
Hmm.
And my friend was like, "What is it? What is it?" And I was like, I didn't know what to say to her, because I didn't know. I think I was just so shocked at the moment that I just kind of looked back at her and just kind of shook my head. And when I had looked back at her, her face had already drained, like totally drained, when we heard the first, like really hard shaking and growling. She was just like, "Oh my God." And when it started tearing down the car, you know, I looked back at Jill, and she was just white as a ghost. Like, she was terrified. I was terrified. But I grew up, with a lot of, we had beef cattle. So we had some really mean hunting dogs, some really mean hogs. And I don't know. I think I face things like that a lot different than most people, because I grew up in a hunting family, and I knew whatever it was a predator. And I knew if you acted afraid, if you acted like prey, you would be treated as prey.
Exactly.
And that's exactly, I was trying to get her to like be quiet, because she was starting to cry and get really upset because it was shaking the car. And I was like, you got to be quiet. And I was trying to get her to get down in the floorboard like me, because we could hear this thing when it stood up. And what I was going to say is, when it stood up, I heard popping. Now, I thought it was so heavy at the time that it was popping the gravel. Now, you got to remember, I was 14.
Sure.
And I thought this was like pea gravel. And I thought, oh my God, what could be so heavy that would pop the gravel? So, and then, of course, Vic told me that it was probably the bones shifting. And that, when he told me that, it did make more sense than what me thinking that it had been pea gravel that was, just popping under the weight of this thing. But it moved around to the back of the car, and it actually got really quiet. And I was down in the floorboard, and I was like, "What is it doing?" And she was like, "Where is it? Where is it?" Because we could, like, you could see it, like its shadow, but it was so dark you couldn't see it good, but you could see the shadow moving around the car. And it had dropped down, and that's when I got like a really good look at how tall the ears were.
Oh, wow.
Because I kind of leaned up and I looked back like, oh my God, what is that thing doing? And I swear, you will never convince me. I think it was trying to figure out how to like lift that hood, lift that trunk up. Now, I don't know if it thought it could get into the trunk. I don't know. I have no idea. But your mind, especially through time, you just have a lot of questions about why it was doing it. But you could hear it messing with it. Like, it was messing with that lock. You could hear it. And I remember I was sitting there and I thought, oh my God, what are we going to do? And enough time had now lapsed that then my mind switched to, oh my God, our boyfriends are going to come back and this thing is going to rip them to shreds and we're going to witness it. And then it's probably coming after us. And I knew she was so bad off already that there was no way she would ever survive that. Like if they came back at that moment and that thing jumped on them, that would be it. She would lose her mind, like, because she was already so scared. And I was scared, but I knew to keep quiet. I can remember like tears running down my face and me just thinking, oh my God, because I've already snuck out of the house. And now, back then we didn't have cell phones. So we weren't calling mom and dad to come rescue us. And I thought, my poor parents, and my mom is already so overprotective of me. I mean, my mom was super overprotective. So I remember running through my mind that my parents I'm going to die. And my parents are going to want to kill me, but it's going to be too late because I'm going to be dead because this thing's going to kill me. So, I mean, really, sure. Now I can look back and I've told the story enough, but I still don't tell it a whole lot because it does upset me. Because when I like really go back into that mindset, because I can really put myself back there if I want to, it's terrifying because you don't know what you're looking at and you don't know why it's doing what it's doing. And I mean, it was like a nightmare, like the worst nightmare you could have. But when it was messing with the car lock and I had looked up and I went to slide back down, I kind of looked over at my door and my door was not locked. And these older vehicles, when the locking mechanism engages, it's very loud, very loud. And I thought, oh my Lord, I have got to lock this door. Because I already like had the door handle and I remember my knuckles were turning white because I was holding it so hard. But I thought, there's no way I can keep that thing out. If it's coming in. I'm not going to be able to keep it out. But I need to lock the door so at least I'll make it hard for it. But I remember I putting my hand on it and just thinking, please, God, please don't let this thing hear the same. But sure enough, as soon as I hit it and it made that sound, that thing just like, you saw it like put its head up. You could see its ears twitching and it's like its nose sniffing. And then it ran now around to my side. And now I'm thinking, oh my God. And then like all of this was probably 12 minutes or less, this whole encounter. But it seemed like forever. I mean, it was just when you're in that situation, you think I'm going to die, this thing's going to kill me. It does seem like really forever. But when it ran around to my side, it did lift up the door handle and it pulled at it. So it did check it. And I really believe it probably checked that other side too, but I was so scared at the time, I didn't notice it because it's just very odd that everywhere you could have gotten into that vehicle, that thing seemed to know how to get in. And that's what really freaks me out when I look back, because I'm more than sure it probably did lift that other door handle, but I just didn't see it or hear it because she was freaking out. And then I'm trying to get away from the window and away from what I just saw. But when it started lifting up the door and pulling at it, I was holding on for dear life. Even though it was locked, I thought, God, it was what we could see, it just looked so massive that to this day, I look back and go, why didn't it just break the window?
Yeah.
Like, why didn't it just or rip the door off? Because it could have, and it tore it. I mean, it knew it could tear into the car because it did. It literally tore that metal up on the other side. And the next day he came over and it was tore up and it had hair and blood on it. And I look back and I wish I had known back then that I should have collected that hair and blood, but I didn't know that. I mean, I was 14 years old at the time. But when it was on my side and it was pulling at the door, I just remember praying, please, God, don't let it get in. Just don't let it get in. And at one point, it got quiet again. And I was like, where is it? And my friend Jill, she was like, where did it leave? But I didn't hear it leave.
Oh, no.
And I was like, it's not pulling on the door. But I guess it's just on the other side. And you could hear like a little bit of breathing. And I thought, and a part of me was, I can remember thinking, should I do this or no? Because I really wanted to look back out. But
Uh,
like I said, the window was fogged up. And I remember sitting in the floorboard thinking, Jesus. And and I had to. I mean, I don't even know why, but when I wiped the window again, it was looking at me. And
oh,
that was the worst. All
oh
you
my
see are
gosh.
these two big yellow eyes. It had scar. It, like, you know how when an animal scars, it turns white. It
Mhm.
was like that. It had it above his eye, across its nose, and then like you could see, like almost like it had been fighting, and it was graying. So I don't know if it, like, maybe it got kicked out. Excuse me. Maybe it had a pack and it got kicked out. Maybe it was an older dog, or whatever it was.
Mhm.
I call them UWCs, upright walking canines, but it was staring at me, and it had these. It's really weird. They're like these very gold, but like
Mhm.
reddish. It's weird. It's like a gold, and I call it gold amber color, and it was just
Okay.
looking at me, and we like stared at each other probably up to a minute, and then all of a
Jeez.
sudden it just snapped its head, and you could see its ears twitching, and then it just took off. It was gone. And we looked down and you saw the guys coming with the flashlights.
Oh,
Where they been all this time?
holy cow.
He had some horses that had been hurt. And
Oh,
see, at the time, we had a cow killed because his home was only about 5 miles from mine.
right.
And if you think a big cat can have a territory of up to 600 miles, imagine what something like that could have. They would have at least that, if not more. 300 to 600. I would bet money. If
Wow.
they do run in packs, they would that's how big their territory would be. 300 to 600 miles. I would guarantee it. The same as
Wow.
like a wolf or a coyote or a big cat or a bear, because that's just how big predators are. They have to have big territories. But
And
and I don't know why it took off. I have no idea. But when they got back in the car, we were upset. We wanted to go home. And they were, of course, angry because we no longer wanted to go out. They didn't know why we were crying. Um, but when I was panicking and just like, crank the car up, just get the car cranked, let's go. You don't know what happened, and of course, we're trying to tell them and we're upset and they're not understanding. But when he cranked the car up and he was backing out, we heard something like howling, like out in the distance. And I remember we all just kind of looked at each other and we were like, get out of here, just go, go, go. And when I got home the next morning, he called me and he said, my dad is so mad at me. He thinks I wrecked. And I said, why? He said, well, I don't know what you saw. He said, but it was hella big and hella strong. And he said, I'll be over later. And when he come over, that quarter panel had been ripped down the side. And I mean ripped. It looked like something had punctured it with 4 claws and just ripped it all the way down the
oh
side.
wow.
Damn.
I've never seen nothing like that. I mean,
And
it was
yet you
like twisted and turned, and there was blood and hair, and because it cut itself doing it, but I guess it
Yeah.
was
oh
his
yeah.
hair. And I don't know, some people say they're fear eaters. I am telling you, what I saw was flesh and blood. It left hair, it left blood behind. That thing was flesh and blood. I'm not saying there might not be another type, but what I saw was a predator.
And
And
yet
it
you
was,
want to go out and hunt for these things or look for them.
well, actually, I've already seen 2. I saw
Oh,
2 last year because the property far away. Not the one was kind of close because it was up in a tree, and it just freaked me out because I wasn't expecting it to be there.
Did
But
you
the
bring a
other one
shark
was really
cage
far
with
off.
you? I mean,
Huh?
like a shark cage to get into or something. Oh my
No,
god.
no. Well, actually, I was really glad when the first one I saw was really far off, and it was just standing there in the really early morning light watching us. Um, and what's so funny is my daughter's dad is going on his property, and when he first learned about this, he gave me hell, and I mean hell about it, because he's skeptical. He doesn't believe in. He didn't believe in Sasquatch. He didn't believe in anything, nothing. And then he called me about 3 years ago and he said, I don't know what's going on up here, but something weird is going on. And I said, what do you mean? He said, we saw this wolf-headed looking thing. And I was like, wolf-headed looking thing? Like what? And when he started telling me, I was like, so wait a minute. You mean you saw something that looked like a werewolf? He was like, he didn't want to come out and say it, but he was like, yeah, that's what we saw. And now it's been his grandmother, his aunt, this other guy that lives like adjacent to the property. There's been several people plus Sasquatch. Like I already knew there was Sasquatch up there because when I was pregnant with her, I swore I heard one yelling one night. Of course, he gave me grief about that as well. And then he went to like this little restaurant a few days later, and there was all these people in there talking about people were pulling over watching a Sasquatch go up the mountain. And a bunch of people saw it. And he come home and he said, you ain't not going to believe this. There's a bunch of people up at the restaurant saying there was a Sasquatch going up the mountain this morning. And all these, there's like, he said 5 cars pulled over and watched it go up the mountain because it was in fog in front of, I mean, I have yet to see a Sasquatch. I've heard them, but I haven't seen one. I've seen some weird stuff going on his property. And to be honest, he's got so much weird stuff going on his property. I don't know what to think anymore because when I lived up there, it wasn't like that. And I don't know if I used to not believe in portals. It's so hard for me to wrap my mind around a portal, but I've seen some weird stuff on his property and I've got video of some really weird stuff. So I don't really know what to think. We saw this, he kept telling me there was this red-eyed one. And because we go out looking all the time and we rode out one night and sure enough, it looked like this, and this sounds crazy. It looked like, in my opinion, I think it was a Wendigo. I know that sounds, but I'm Native American. It looked like a wolf that had been starved to death and had like the skin just laid over bones. It was so weird. Like you could see all the skeletal. And I told him, I said, that is not the quote Dogman. That is not what I saw. What I saw was big, muscular, strong. Whatever that thing was, looked like it was starving to death. And you could make out like the ribs, the spine. It was eerie and creepy looking. And it was on all 4, but it looked like it was bigger than a Great Dane. I don't know what that was. It scared me so bad. I said, back. Because we were on 4-wheelers. I said, I'm going back. I'm not doing this. We're going home. I'm not riding tonight. Because that's usually what we do is we'll ride the 4-wheelers, cut them off, and then just listen. And when I say it's back in the holler and very dark, I mean, you turn your lights off, you can't see a thing. All you can do is listen. And he set off a, those old air raid sirens? He had one. And now get this, these are men all in their 40s, like late 30s and 40s. Him and 4 buddies were out one night messing around. They had that air raid because they were talking about the coyotes and stuff. Well, they set it off thinking it'd bring in coyotes. Well, they heard all the coyotes start up. He said, and they all told me this, there was something else that then started howling and all the coyotes shut up. And then it come crashing. And he said it sounded like it was tearing the mountain down. They all said that. And they said never again would they go back there at night. And guess what? I haven't been able to get one of them to go back to that area. Not one. Out of 5 grown men, all very armed, country boys, good old boys. Not one will go back. Not one. And I don't know. There's something back there. If you set off that air raid thing, because he set it off one night when I was up there, and you can hear something very, I don't know what, it's not a howl. It's almost like a scream. It's weird. And it's like when that thing starts up, the coyotes quit. Like the coyotes will be hollering. But when whatever that is starts, those coyotes completely shut up. They're just completely. And I told him, I said, in my opinion, it's either one of those dog things or it's a Sasquatch. I almost believe more it's a Sasquatch, just the way it's yelling. And I think that's why the coyotes shut up. They're afraid of it.
Do you think whatever this thing is might be a shapeshifter of some sort, or are we talking about, three different types of creatures: the Wendigo, the Bigfoot, and the Dogman?
That's what I mean. We've seen, you wouldn't believe some of the stuff we've seen up there. We watched a shadow one night and I actually recorded it. I've got some of it on video. We watched it come out of the ground. I don't know what that it was, but at first we were like, because we're all like, did y'all see? Like, we're asking each other, do you see this? But this thing, I swear, it come up out of the ground and it looked like this black mass that come up out of the ground, and it just started moving around and it looked human shaped.
Oh,
And then it went back down in the ground. I don't know what that thing was. I don't know. And that's why I told him, I said, some of the stuff going on up here is out of my realm. I don't know what it is. I do believe he's got the, if people want to call them, I call them, like I said, UWCs or dogmen. I do believe they're up there because I've seen two. I think there's Sasquatch because I've seen a lot of sign, and I have a very good friend who's probably 5 to 7 miles from where he is, because he's got like over 40 acres that's surrounded by thousands of acres. That's nothing but just woods and woods and woods. Well, she lives about 7 miles away and she sits on a few hundred acres. And she let her family come up there and hunt last Thanksgiving. Well, they didn't hunt long because when they went out there, they swore there was about a 10+ foot Sasquatch standing in her front yard. And then
wow.
boys packed up and they left. And they said, we're not hunting this land.
Wow.
So yeah, and then she said they were terrified. She said they were armed and they were terrified. They come back in. They said, "Hell no! There is something big out in your yard. We don't know what the crap that is." And she said, "What does it look like?" And they went, "It looks like Bigfoot." And she was
Oh,
like, "What?" They said, "There is a tall, hairy thing out in your front yard." And they absolutely wouldn't go back into her woods because her, like, this part where I'm talking about is up on the North Carolina Virginia line. It is it's part of the Appalachian, so it's really thick and heavily wooded. And like, if you ain't ever been up in mountains like that, when I tell you it can get dark, and I mean dark, it can get dark even in daylight. You get back in some of them mountains in the woods, and the way just the trees grow and the pines and everything, you would think that it's nighttime or at least late evening. It's just very odd, when you get up in the mountains, especially that far back where you're really awake. You're a good 20 minutes from any big town. Most neighbors are spread out miles apart. It's different. It's very different. So I I've always been told that things are up there. My dad's from that area. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see. That's the area I'm looking in. So, and I do have some really interesting videos, and just like some of the markings we see with the trees, and just weird, weird stuff. We watched where you could track the deer. It was running and there was something with this very big footprint following it, but the footprint didn't look, it looked clawed, but
Mm.
it was huge. And there's just stuff like that, just really weird stuff. Then we saw a little tiny footprint, and I thought it was weird because it was so little. And I was actually watching one of the I don't know, I guess it was where they were talking to some speakers at one of the Sasquatch like conventions or
mhm.
something. And this man, the man who has the little footprint, and
Okay.
that, I swear to you, that is exactly what this one looks like. It looks
Really?
like, but it was just one little tiny footprint, little bitty toes, fat little foot, and nobody up there has a baby, and just one little footprint. Like it
Mm.
had wiggled loose maybe and was able to get one foot down before it got snatched back up or something. I don't know. But it's strange. It's just very odd. And
Duh.
considering that he's not a believer and neither is his family, and now they're all scratching their head like, what is going on, and it, like, his mom and aunt, it makes them really nervous, to be up there alone. And I
Yeah.
don't blame him. I mean, his aunt said that, well, it wasn't just his aunt, it was him. His aunt told me that before his grandmother died, she had been seeing this red-eyed thing, that she would be washing dishes, and all of a sudden there it would be in the window, and her house was like, this particular window was probably a good 7 foot off the ground, and she said it would be like leaning down looking in, and she said it looked wolf-headed, but it had red eyes.
Jeez.
And I mean, I had never even heard of that. She had never told anyone that until
Yeah.
I guess she was seeing it often enough that it was scaring her. And then she told
Mm-hmm.
him, and his aunt who lived there at the time too, she said she had seen it. It's just weird, you know. And now I've talked to like several of the neighbors and they've seen it. There's just like this old barn that this wolf thing hangs around. And like if you saw a picture of the barn, it in the area the barn's in, you would just be like, yeah, I could see something living in that barn. Because it's not a barn that's being used anymore. It's not, they're not running, the people that own it, they got too old to run the cattle. And so it's this huge barn that's now all grown up. And I don't know. I mean, like some of the stories that I hear, especially up there, just blow my mind. Because
What
like,
about Native American land in that area?
oh yeah, I'm Cherokee, and
Right.
you know, there's a lot of different uh still Native Americans that live up there. But I know in my family, I've been told that, especially with Sasquatch, and I've heard this, you know, talking to other tribes and elders, that many, and this sounds so crazy, but many years ago, and for, you know, most Native American communities, our elders are our way to look back into the past.
Right.
And I know some people think of it as a telephone game, but I always tell them, well, you have to think about the time period back then. And honestly, especially Native Americans, they just don't have a big imagination anyway. But there has been a lot of tribes I know I have spoken with, elders and tribes, that have said that, I think especially Sasquatch, they're all very different. I don't think any of them, I think depending, kind of like us, depending on where you live, what part of the country, what they're going to act like, what they're going to look like. You go deeper south, they get a lot more aggressive. Here, I've been told they can be aggressive and then there can be nice ones. So I don't know, but I know in my own family, it was passed down that those creatures told Native Americans, and I've heard this in other tribes too, that when the Spanish and the white man showed up here, they told us we should run them off. And we didn't. We were nice. And that they communicated that we would regret it, and that they were taking their young and their clans and moving high into the mountains. And I think that's exactly what most of them did. And I think that's why they hide the way they do.
Yeah.
Because they know man is dangerous anyway. And I think depending, even in Native American communities, depending on where you were, you know, and this is before the Spanish and the white or anyone showed up here in America, depending on where you were, we didn't send smoke signals to each other, you know, passing this stuff back and forth. So to me, it's very odd that there's other tribes out there that have had these same encounters. Some are good, some are bad. It depends on who you speak with and what kind of encounter they had. Some tribes believe they're evil, period. Some tribes believe, no, you can trade with them. There's things, you know, they'll trade with you things. And some tribes say that's what we used to do. And you know, in the Cherokee tribe, there's actually a story, and some people say it's a legend. Some people say it really happened. It depends on who you talk to. But supposedly a Cherokee woman married a Sasquatch and had children by him.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
That's cool. Well,
That is a story that I've heard. And supposedly they married. He used to, I think, aggravate her actually at first. And she would like try to shoo him away. And she couldn't understand why he wouldn't wear clothes and stuff. But anyway, the way the story goes, that after I guess he basically kidnapped her, she realized he wasn't all that bad and that he could be gentle and kind. And she actually got him supposedly to start wearing clothes and he could talk a little bit. And they had children, but the children looked very normal. They were big and strong, but they still looked pretty like human. They didn't look anything but human. But supposedly she was in the end she was happily married to him, but they stayed away from the tribe a lot because a lot of the others didn't accept him. Now we're talking 1700s, I think.
Mm.
So very, very long time ago. And I could imagine that probably would have been hard for many tribal members to understand because a lot of people were fearful.
Yeah.
But if they needed something done, lift something too heavy, or it was always him they went to, or one of the children because they knew they could do it.
Open
And
a
I
jar.
I find that story very fascinating. And
That is.
I want to dig more into that story because I've heard that story several times from elders. And I want to know more about that story because I've heard it too many times now. And I think, man, I just don't think this was a made up story. I think there really may have been someone out there that married one of these things. And I think they're as different and as unique as we are. I think they have good days and bad days. I think you can have very nice ones and you can have very mean ones. I think if they're as close to us, as a lot of people believe, then yeah, they're going to have personalities very much like us. And
Yeah.
I always wonder, in my tribe, we look at them as a type of people.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at like how closely related we are with chimps and gorillas, and that they can have all these emotions and stuff, I guess for me, I don't like people really calling them creatures or critter. To me, they're too human like.
They're
And
just
the
another
fact,
people.
yeah, and a lot of people say they're a creature, but I don't think that's true at all. And another reason I don't think it is because I think these Sasquatch know the places they can go to be protected. I really believe that. I think they do communicate with each other because there's too many tribes that have said that they used to communicate with us until that some of the things we learned from them. And I don't know. I just, to me, it makes sense. It really does. It just makes sense to me. So I think these things know, honestly, that the parks, that there's no hunting and they're protected there. And I think that's why they show up there all the time. I don't think it's a fluke coincidence. I think they know. In fact, I would bet they have meetings about it.
No, I'm sure.
And if something is always on the move, and you got to think, most Native American tribes were that way too. We were nomadic because we didn't want to destroy the land. We wanted to live with the land.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if we did learn this, especially from them, I don't know, it just makes sense to me. It really does. And the fact that they know man is dangerous. I think they've always known that. And I think that's why they're so hard to find. And it breaks my heart and I mean, and everybody has their own opinion and I respect everyone's opinion. But when I hear people wanting to kill one for science, it makes me pretty angry because I'm like, to me, that's just like we already know in a chimp, even if people think they're animals, in a chimp and a gorilla family, you take out a member, they are devastated.
Mm-hmm.
So why would you do that? I don't get that. And some people think I'm even going crazy because I mean, even with the upright walking canines, I think they have a right to be here. Just like I know in our tribe and other tribes, there's also another branch off of these things that are called wolf people. And they are not the big muscular things. They look like wolves, except they act like people. And those stories have been passed down to me too. But they're very benevolent and they're very shy. And I think there is a guy I know was watching videos on him, and I think he's in California. He was filming some of them, or he said he was. And he was trying to just make people understand that there was a difference between these wolf people versus like quote Dogman. The wolf people will not bother you. They will not hurt you. They will hide. They don't want anything to do with man. They just want to be left alone.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, the cryptid subject can be a very touchy subject, but I think there's so much that we don't know about this world.
Yep.
And I think it's just that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
who knows what all's out there? I mean, who
Right.
knows? I mean, and people see things or hear things that, there's things that go on that we can't explain. And maybe it is supernatural. Or as I tell people, supernatural to me is just another word for magical. But maybe we still need that little bit of magic in this world. And
We do.
I know I definitely don't want to see people going out there and destroying it.
No.
Exactly. Tim, do you have one last question for our guest?
I'm simply just amazed by all of it. So, I mean, we're just under 5 minutes left in the show, man, it's flew just written by. So just I guess a simple question, or maybe it's a little convoluted. What I'm wondering is there's so many different ways that people look at this. There's like Dogman, Bigfoot, Sasquatch. Now, some people believe that they're interdimensional, and some people believe that they're actually creatures in the woods. So I'm assuming, or I'm gathering from what you're saying, that the Cree people, or some of the Cree people, believe that these are creatures that live and dwell in the woods. It's not an interdimensional thing where they can transport. Right.
Yeah, Cherokee. But yeah. But and I'm not gonna say that. And I don't, you get into that whole interdimensional thing.
Yeah,
It's
right.
so hard for me to wrap my brain around, but I'm just going to put this out there. And maybe it's just they're smarter than us. Because now think about it. Even with thermal, even with night vision, if something is a master at hiding, and we all know those things work from heat, how do we know that they can't regulate their temperature, their blood flow, their breathing? Because guess what? We can do it. And if we do it right, we wouldn't show up on thermal. We wouldn't show up on night vision. I mean, and these things are already a master at this. I don't know how. To me, a lot of people don't look up enough either, but people don't look up enough. They don't look down enough, but they just think things go straight through the woods, and that's not always true. But I don't know. Maybe they are. I mean, I don't believe most videos I see on YouTube, to be honest. There's probably 3 out there that I think they really did catch probably a Sasquatch in them. But I don't know. I mean, but that's another part of it. It's a mystery, and maybe we need that little bit of mystery. Maybe we're not meant to know right now, and maybe we can't even handle it right now. I mean, I hate to say that, but considering we only use 20% of our brain, or well, now scientists are actually saying less. I mean, maybe we can't handle it, and maybe somehow they can use more. I don't know.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
How can people get in touch with you or watch your podcast or whatever it is that you've got going on out there?
Oh, well, I'm on Facebook. People can find me that way. Lord knows they do. Learn my lesson there too. So they can find me on Facebook, or they can go to YouTube and they can look up. I mean, Dogman Diaries. I still have the videos up, and there's still a link on there that would send them to my email. But then on my new one, the Project Dark Timber, it also, Cryptid Encounters, it also has a link, and people can come there and it'll send me, if they want to message me, it'll send me an email. But yeah, I mean, I am looking for people in places that, don't mind me coming out and poking around, and it's up to them. They can, let me interview them, or if they just want me to come out and talk to them and ask questions, that's okay too. Because I know when you don't have anyone to talk to, or you feel like nobody's going to believe you, it's scary. And some people don't, they want to come forward, but they don't want to go public. And I'm fine with that. I just want to be able to come and hear their story. And if they're having activity on their property and they give me permission, I would love to just stick around for a little bit and see if I can capture anything or find anything. Because I also think these things are a master at avoiding video. I think they're just, I think they can see more than we're giving them credit for.
we're coming up against a hard break here on this. So I want to thank you very much. And I know Tim does too.
You
well,
betcha. Thank you for
thank
coming
y'all
on.
for having me on.
This has been
Absolutely.
awesome. Oh my gosh.
Well, you'll have to have me back sometime after I've been in the field more.
All right. Good night.
All right. Good
We'll
night,
see you
guys.
next weekend.
All
Good
right.
night, guys.
Bye.
Bye.